Hello and welcome everybody. This is a new episode from the ETTC webinar series dedicated to develop and to discuss things related to continual professional development, teaching of course, ELT field, ESL, EFL and so on. Today we are with our special guest, Dr. Djamila AIT AISSA. Please welcome with me Dr. Djamila. Hi.
Yes, welcome. Hadil, welcome.
Yes, so...
Can I start then?
Yes, sure.
Okay then, welcome. Welcome everybody. I'm pleased to share with you some concepts concerning intercultural competence in English language teaching. And as I am an English teacher, at the same time translator, I think that I'm able to give you some new insights concerning intercultural competence. So, to start this webinar, I would like to give you an insight concerning this TM today. Okay then. We move to the outline. So in this presentation, I'd like to introduce you some basic definitions concerning intercultural, of course, intercultural competence. Then we move. In the second point, I'm going to speak about the definition of intercultural competence model. It's a model, it's not mine. Then I move to the materials that the teacher needs to promote intercultural competence. And in the fourth stage, I will move to intuitive knowledge versus acquired knowledge. It means native speakers versus as we are not non-native speakers. Then I will finish with the rules. I will give you some rules how to deal in intercultural class debates, and I conclude. Okay, to start first, I have to say that the model that I have chosen to speak about in this communication, I have made a synthesis of document, very important document published by the Council of Europe in 2002. Okay, so this document is very important. Why? Because it gives an insight into intercultural dimension within language teaching, and especially the challenges that non-native teachers face when dealing with different cultural aspects, and how to tackle cultural clashes and subtleties by means of adequate methods and materials. Okay, so before we dive in this topic, I would like to move to some basic concept that we have. For instance, we have to make the difference between foreign language and second language. Because we are in Algeria, of course. So what does it mean by foreign language? It's a language that is acquired in a milieu where it's normally not in use. It means that a foreign language is acquired in classrooms, such as, for instance, in Algeria, we are learning English, German, Spanish as foreign language. Now we move to the second language. What does it mean by second language? This is language that becomes another tool of communication alongside the first language. The environment, it means, for instance, like here as in Algeria, we consider Arabic as our first language. Then we are using French as a second language. Okay. And why we call it second language? Because it's used in, for instance, in our administrations, in education, in ministries, and we call it, and we have just, in our case, this is French. We use it even in our everyday life. Okay, this is the main difference between foreign language and second language. It means that in Algeria, we are rather studying English as foreign language rather than second language.
Okay.
Now, sorry?
Yeah, I said okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay, now I move to intercultural communication. What does it mean Inter, you have inter, the prefix inter, and your cultural communication. It means automatically as it's defined when we deal with, for instance, like the first definition, intercultural communication refers to the communication between people from two different cultures. This is the first definition. And I have chosen second one, and I prefer the second one. Intercultural communication is a symbolic, interpretive, transactional, contextual process in which people of different cultures create shared meanings. And I think that this is a suitable definition, because sometimes we deal with different cultures, not just with two. As I'm translator, you know, I shift easily so I work in three languages. I shift from Arabic into English and then into French and vice versa. I'm working in three languages, not just two languages. Okay?
Okay.
Now,
So I believe that
okay,
is
now
a bit hard on you to switch between languages.
Yeah, but as translator, this is my everyday job. Okay, so even in culture, I mean, because to translate, it means that you must be able to understand the background, the cultural background. Otherwise, we will never be able to translate anything. Okay, now culture. What do we mean by culture? Culture, the beliefs, maybe values, mindsets, and practices of group of people. It includes behavioral patterns and norms, the rules, the assumptions, the logic to share what's appropriate and inappropriate. You see? So culture is a collective program of our minds from birth, and that distinguishes one group of people from another. Fortunately, this is our fingerprint, you can say. Okay. Now, intercultural competence. We move to competence. What does it mean, competence? Language conveys more than linguistic information. It's grammar, syntax, phonology, and vocabulary. At the same time, it contains sociocultural dimension. This dimension deals with beliefs, a part of religious values, behaviors, mindsets, and practices, or what's called intercultural competence. A competence, what does it mean, competence? It was defined first by Chomsky in 1965 as the intuitive knowledge to generate or perform sense. And when we perform, we move to performance. Okay. This classical concept, we can call it classical. Why? Because it's reviewed by some linguists. This classical concept was redefined by Heinz in 1972 and this definition of competence is completed by adding socio-cultural factors, which are conveyed by language in use. Okay. Now what's the difference when we speak? Yeah, we are using words, we are using meanings, and when we say meanings, it means that we are using direct meanings and implied meanings. And when we say implied meanings here, we move to pragmatics, which is a branch of linguistics which deals with implied meanings. As in, for instance, if I use metaphors, I can speak by using metaphors. I can speak by using idiomatic expressions. And these idioms are the most difficult language aspects to be dealt with. For instance, as translators, this is the most difficult side of language, which is difficult for translators to deal with it, especially translators. Okay.
Yeah.
Each language has its specific way.
Yeah. Excuse me.
To
sorry.
describe your lighting.
May I add?
Sorry.
Sorry. May I add something?
Sorry, I haven't understood.
I said sorry. May I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to idioms and metaphors, I believe when we were students in university, it was the hardest thing to deal with in translation.
Yeah.
As a foreign language learners.
We face this problem every day. And it's difficult to the student to deal with it, especially the student. And why? This is due to the differences in cultural environments. For instance, I've given here just one example. If we say in English, beg, borrow, and steal. In French, les faire, les mains et les pieds. there is no connection sometimes, no connection at all, because these are two different cultures. You see?
Yeah.
Now, I have given other examples. For instance, very specific example. I remember when we did it during our translation training, and I have been fascinated. Believe me. For instance, for English man or woman, for English people, they say when they are very delighted, it warmed my heart. You say. But for Arabic people, instead of it warmed my heart, they say it iced my heart when they are delighted. And this is due to the environment, of course. For English people, their environment is so cold. So something which is that makes delight, it must be warm when they feel warm. And in the opposite, the Arabic people, they feel delighted when they feel the cool matter. That's why, because their environment is a hot one. Okay, I have given another example. For instance, the color of the snow. For us, when we say it's white like snow, this is obvious, it's logical. But for the Eskimos, for instance, the snow is blue, according to the environment where they are situated. Okay, so if we say for them white as snow, maybe this concept is weird for them. Okay, donc, okay, go to something which deals with cultures. We say, for instance, in this is English grammar. In English grammar, we have some specific aspects. For instance, speaking about animals, we have higher animals and lower animals. You see, for instance, like cats, tiger, the horse are higher animals. Lower animals, such as mouse, snake, toad, and so on. And for higher animals, they are using personal pronouns. We consider them as human beings. They can use who, he, or she according to gender. Okay. Lower animals, they are considered as inanimate things. Something else, baby. For English people in their culture, the baby is common gender. How? Because for baby, we can use three genders. It can be considered as animate and we use he or she, or inanimate and we can use which or it. This aspect too is difficult to be understood by the student. Each time that I give them this information, they don't accept it. They say, but for us, baby is a human being, an animal, we use it. Okay. Higher organisms. English people consider some things as sacred. Why? Because they express feeling towards things. The ship, the car, the motor, the countries are considered as feminine gender, and they have chosen feminine gender. And we have to take it, I think, as granted, because even me, I have no idea about how they decided to use, for instance, feminine gender for things. Okay, this is their culture. But if we move to Indian culture, we see something different. For Indian culture, for instance, the mouse is to represent the power of wisdom and knowledge. And you know, they consider it as a symbol to overcome obstacles. Indian people built temples for mice and give them offerings such as the best fruits and food. Okay, so I think that it's just this is cultural. We have to understand this and to see it as a cultural aspect for Indian people. Okay, not even if English people consider the mouse as lower animal, and for us it's an animal, of course, as Algerian people. This is just a mouse. Okay, now concerning the intercultural competence model, what's it? These are 5 skills that the teacher should be aware about how to deal with when this competence, how to deal with it. We have the first one. This is attitude, prioritizing self-value in others, savoir-être. The second is the critical cultural awareness, savoir s'engager. The third one, skills to discover or interact, savoir apprendre et faire. Knowledge of self and other, of interaction, individual and societal survival. And the fifth one is the skills to interpret and relate. Okay, we move to the first one. So, what does it mean? We have our culture, and others have their cultures. Okay, in any way, you should consider your own culture as superior to another's one. Why? Because each one consider his own culture as something sacred. You see, it's part of him or herself. It means that to relativize, it means to decenter our own culture. It means that we shouldn't consider our culture as an important one if we compare it to another one. Okay, the second skill, the critical knowledge. This is the ability to evaluate critically and on the basis of explicit criteria, perspectives, practices, and products in one's own and other cultures and countries. It's not the purpose of teaching to try to change learners' values, of course. We are not asking to do this, but to make them explicit and conscious in any evaluative response to others. What does it mean? It means that to get the knowledge to cooperate with others. Very important when we cooperate. Now, the third skill is to interpret and relate. This is the ability to interpret a document or event from another culture, to explain it and relate it to documents or events from one's own culture. Because intercultural speakers or mediators need to be able to see how misunderstandings can arise easily, can be like this, and how they might be able to resolve them. They need the attitudes of decentering, but also the skills of comparing. By putting ideas, events, documents from two or more cultures side by side and seeing how each might look from the other perspective, we can reach and common ground, I think. It means that we have, what does it mean that all what I have said now concerning the third scale, it applies to discourse analysis strategies. We must know how to analyze our the other cultures. Okay, now the fourth scale, we have to discover, interact. Okay, the ability to acquire new knowledge of culture and cultural practices, and the ability to operate knowledge, attitudes, and skills under the constraints of real-time communication and interaction. We must know how to interact. To be however open, yeah, we have to be open-minded. We have to be curious about and tolerant. Tolerance, we need tolerance of other people's beliefs, values, and behaviors. Learners are their own beliefs, values, and behaviors are deeply embedded and can create reaction and rejection. This is the most difficult aspect of intercultural competence. Putting, it means, what does it mean? Putting into practice the skills of positive interaction. That's what we need when we interact. We need positive interaction. And this, the fifth skill, this is critical cultural awareness. Ça va s'engager. What does it mean? To create common ground, to be shared with all the community individuals without any distinction. It means that we have to respect others in the way that we are going to be respected in our turn. Okay, if we want to be respected, respect. This is a rule. Now, what materials does the teacher need to promote the intercultural dimension? For instance, the teacher can ask the learners to make research and bring different points of view to be debated in the classroom using newspapers, for instance, or videos about different cultures. It's a way to share different cultures. This means that no curriculum for language education could be transported directly from one national system to another. The teacher doesn't need to have experience or be an expert on the country. The teacher's task is to help learners ask questions and to interpret answers. That's all. Okay. What the teacher should ask is not how much more information about the country and its cultures can I include in the syllabus, but how can I develop those other competences which will help learners to interact successfully with people of other cultures and identities. Now, intuitive knowledge versus acquired knowledge. Since we have started learning English, I remember that we are asked to perform as native speaker. I don't know if you remember this, but this is what we have used to hear. It's argued that the native speakers knows the language of country intuitively and is not he is or she is an authority on the language in a way which a non-native speaker can never hope to attain. The norm. Native speaker is a norm. But a native speaker can't be aware about the whole aspect of his or her own culture, because one language can be related to many cultures, as in Algeria, for instance. You see, we are living in the same country, but we have different cultural aspects. It depends on if we are from the east, from the south, you see, from the north. We have, we can say we are multicultural country, and it's great, I think. It's
It is.
important to use authentic material, but to ensure that learners understand its context and intention. Materials from different origins with different perspectives should be used together to enable learners to compare and to analyze the materials critically. It's very important that learners acquire skills for analysis, then factual information, the spirit of critical analysis. It's very important. Okay, we are not, sometimes there is lack of immersive environment. Okay, if there is no immersive visit, for instance, as in our case, teachers create pedagogical structure in three phases. Learners can profit from visit or exchange in ways which are scarcely possible in the classroom by means of watching a video or documentary and then to debate the theme. Like this, for instance, it's an activity. An intercultural and intercultural dimension involves learners in sharing their knowledge with each other and discussing their opinions. There needs to be agreed rules for such discussions based on an understanding of human rights and respect for others, of course. Learners thus learn as much from each other as from the teacher, comparing their own cultural context with the unfamiliar context to which language learning introduces them. What are the rules now? To deal with intercultural, for instance, class debates, we can. There is a procedure. For instance, we can apply the following. Participants are expected to listen to each other and take turns. Where a discussion is chaired, the authority, and it means the teacher, when we say the authority, the teacher who should mentor, direct the debate. The authority of the chair is respected. We have to respect the authority. Even heated debates must be conducted in polite language. Discriminatory remarks, particularly racist, sexist, and homophobic discourse and expression, are totally unacceptable at any time. Participants show respect when commenting on and describing people portrayed in visuals or text. All involved have the responsibility to challenge stereotypes. A respectful tone is required at all times. I think this is the main the main steps that we have to respect if you want to direct intercultural debate. Now, as conclusion, I think that I can say that concerning the intercultural competence, what's now we have spoken about teachers, but what about learner now? The learner, for instance, in intercultural teaching, he can acquire linguistic competence, of course, enrich his grammar, phonology, syntax, semantics, of course, but at the same time, the learner is acquiring intercultural competence. What does it mean? It means that the share of values and beliefs and to interact with multiple identities, fact analysis, and what's the aim? The aim is to overcome cultural clashes, which is the most difficult, I think, thing to deal with it, the cultural clashes. Okay, then. I think that I have finished my presentation. I hope that I have given you some new insights concerning the cultural competence. And now I'm waiting for the answers that I hope they will be concise. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Djamila. It was really
Yeah.
insightful.
Welcome. Welcome.
So
Okay then.
we're gonna have a short break where we share
Yeah.
something about
Questions.
the
Okay.
ETTC, then we'll move to the questions.
Are you a self-taught teacher who wants to get certified? Are you a novice teacher who wants to gain more experience? Are you a veteran teacher who wants a teaching update? Look no further than ETTC, the International Standard Training Center. Various programs that you can choose from, designed to help you achieve your goals. Exciting curriculums and fruitful workshops, both online and on-site. Latest technological aids, the best up-to-date training. Ready to take the next step? Do not miss the opportunity to boost your career.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now let's move straight forward to the Q&A part.
Welcome to our weekly and free webinar series.
Yes. So personally, I have a question. I have many questions about the intercultural competence when it comes to teaching beginners. So, oh, sorry, we cannot hear you.
Now,
Oh,
is it
this is,
possible?
yeah, this is better. So I was gonna ask about, like, when teaching the newbies or beginners, as teachers, we always face the question how to say that in English and how to say that in Arabic, trying to translate literal translation. Sorry, the sound is cut again. Sorry, Dr. Djamila, the sound is cut again. We can't hear you.
Can you?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay,
And in this way,
this is better.
is it okay?
Yes, this is better.
Hey. Yeah, as you have said, for beginners to teach them language, you mean intercultural, especially intercultural competence, you mean, or language in general?
Language in general, like teaching general English to the
Yeah.
A1s, A2s, and you just face the question, Miss or Madam, how can we say that in Arabic and how can we say that in English?
Especially, yeah, translation.
Yes.
I think that as we have thought, as we have made our training in English, they have said the teachers are always saying, don't use translation when you study English, please. This is their main advice. They give, and I think that when we teach, it's preferable. We prefer that we use English rather than translating, because if we try to translate, it becomes not English, especially if we are teaching English as a foreign language, it will not become teaching English, but it would be rather teaching translation. I think that we have to keep in using English rather than using Arabic or French or something like this. Okay.
Yes, that's what I believe too, but sometimes some students find it hard to believe that, for example, this can't be said in English
How do we
because,
say this?
yeah,
They
because the
like
because the
they
Arabic,
like very much. Yeah, this kind of, but we are not a dictionary. I answer in this way. You see, if you want to make your own research, you can translate at home. But now you are learning English, and they start to do their best. Believe me,
Yeah,
even if they are beginners.
yes, that's pretty much the struggle, the common
Yeah,
struggle.
struggle every day. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. One more question. Like when you said that someone has to put his culture always before others,
Sorry.
and since we're talking about teachers, if a teacher is teaching like abroad, sorry, the sound is cut again. The sound.
Yes.
Okay, better. So
Yeah.
my question was like if a teacher is teaching abroad in a country that
Yeah.
has totally different
You
culture,
mean online, for instance, not
well, either
face to
online,
face.
either online or face to face. Like,
Yeah.
how would he or she deal with the cultural differences between the two
Yeah.
people or
I
countries?
think
Or
it's the same. There is no difference, Hadi. No difference because when we teach culture, it means that it's part of the language. We can't separate language from culture, I think. It's part of it. Okay. When we teach English, at the same time, we are teaching culture. Okay. We can't separate it.
okay.
It's,
So when a teacher, well, before a teacher moves to another country in order to teach English there, he or she must learn about that culture. That's
yeah,
what
of course.
yeah,
To
that
make
was
some
my,
research, yeah. 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 It's another good thing. Yeah, we prepare. You mean we prepare the
yeah,
if we have theme, for instance, about Japan, we have to look before. We have to make some research about their culture, so that when we deal with the text, it will be easy. Yeah, I am with you. This is good step
yeah. So,
beforehand.
for
We have
instance,
to prepare
I
this thing.
remember during my TEFL course that it was mentioned that in some countries, pointing out to a student using your index finger is a taboo.
Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, this is the huge difference that the culture can make between two countries or two people.
yeah. Subtleties, subtleties. When we deal with such subtleties, we become difficult. Yes.
So we have an interaction from Ms. Rumaisa Azouz. She's saying, I think that concerning teaching new items, it would be better to use flashcards or body language rather than telling them in Arabic. The voice again.
Gestures, yeah, even gestures we can interpret in different ways. When we make maybe inappropriate gesture, it will be interpreted differently than we are thinking about. This is the yeah. That's appropriate, inappropriate. Yeah, it's very it's very interesting to know the difference
Yes, it is.
in cultures. Okay, other
So,
questions?
may I ask you about what is, or like, what was something memorable you faced while teaching because of the.
Sorry.
Sorry, I said, what is something you remember, or what is a memorable thing that happened to you while teaching because of this difference between cultures?
Especially, you know, when I, because my studies, I have told you, I have done translation studies. When we dealt with idioms, very interesting chapter. I remember, I loved it. I loved it. That's why my thesis is on implied meanings in such as metaphors, idioms. This is my thesis to obtain my doctorate degree. So I loved it. I loved it. To, for instance, we have an idiom in English and we look for the equivalent in French or in Arabic. Interesting research. We have made interesting part of it, believe me.
Yeah. So, if may I share like a funny experience I had once teaching. So I'm originally from the Algerian East, and I was sorry, yeah. So I was teaching somewhere in Algiers, like in the capital of the country, which has completely different accent from us. So I struggled to like communicate with my students because of one word, which is breakfast, that has totally different meanings or totally different words in mine and theirs. Yeah, sorry, the sound again.
Algerian slang, you mean?
Yeah,
From east, yeah, okay. From east to west to south, yeah, different meanings.
yeah. So Rumaisa is saying concerning proverbs, I think that the use of word by word translation would be meaningless, isn't it?
I mean, word, the word word,
She
strange.
she said concerning proverbs, I think that the use of word by word translation would be meaningless. I think she means, or she's referring to literal translation.
I mean, word by word.
Yeah,
This is it.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we use it, as translator. Can be correct, yeah. We get correct expressions by respecting word, but unfortunately, it's not always. In translation, sometimes we use word for word. It's perfect. We got good translation, but sometimes it doesn't function in this way. Okay.
Yeah, so here she's referring to translating proverbs. Yeah,
I haven't.
she's referring to translating proverbs.
I mean, proverbs or idiomatic expressions. We have to make a lot of research, and even me, believe me, there are some idioms that don't have the equivalent in French or in Arabic because this is completely different cultures.
Oh, can we have an example,
Okay,
please?
sorry.
Can we have an example, please? Sorry, the sound, the voice.
I haven't, but believe me, there are many examples. Now I have not in mind specific one, but believe me, there are many because cultures are different. But what we have something to do as two people. Sometimes to avoid this, we can't leave a blank. Of course, we have to give the equivalent. We use we try to explain rather than giving fixed expression.
Yeah, I totally understand. I faced the same problems studying translation during university.
Sorry?
I said I totally understand because I faced the same problems during my university studies.
Okay, then you see, yeah, as translators, we're facing this each time that we are doing translations.
Yeah, so we have another question that says, how can technology be used to promote intercultural competence in English language teaching? Sorry, the voice again.
So it's a good question. Yeah, we can use technology. Why not? By using, for instance, a database where we can put all. If we want to, for instance, if we want to work on idiomatic expressions, we can do this. We can, for instance, gather all the expressions and try to, as I'm doing now, this is my project. You have guessed that I'm doing it.
Oh,
This
that's
is
really
my
great.
I'm trying to prepare dictionary concerning the intercultural aspects in idioms or proverbs, and we will try to, for instance, to compare. And if we find if we find equivalent, it will be perfect. But if we haven't the equivalent here, we have to make research, and we should discuss about this phenomenon. But believe me, it's interesting. I like this subject to study.
Yeah, it is. It is fun too.
Interesting one, yeah.
Yeah. So another question from a fellow attendee is, what is intercultural competence in the context of English language teaching?
Speaking from the beginning, yeah, especially not especially in English. You say I have been thinking before we start this webinar. I've been thinking that I've said not just the intercultural competence. We don't need it just in English teaching. I think that we need it in our everyday life. We have to be aware about other cultural aspects. Okay, but concerning English, yes, we need it, especially because we deal with different texts. And nowadays, I think that the curriculum or the syllabuses are we have another type of knowledge. We are not just learning, for instance, just for learning. We are in touch, we are in contact with different cultures. As you know, we become a village. We are not a world, we are just a village. It means that we should be aware about every culture, we can say, in the world. We have to be in touch with them, and we have to make our own research. If we don't understand something, for instance, in the news or in other contexts, we have to look from the meanings, the different meanings and subtleties, especially differences in cultures. And
Yes.
we have to accept this. We are not alone. We are not living alone in our environment. We are surrounded by different cultures. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, indeed, we are. So another question says, what are some common challenges that ends when teaching English language learners from difficult cultures, and how can these challenges be addressed?
Of course, when we are dealing with intercultural competence and intercultural maybe themes, discussions, we have to be able to understand each other's. I am not asking people to accept this, but we have to understand. Okay, as we wish that others understand us, we have to understand others' behaviors. Okay, this is I think it's a rule, especially nowadays, as I've told you, because we become just a village. We are not. We are dealing every day, especially in our interaction with in websites like here we are discussing. And I'm sure that we have different cultural backgrounds. Those who are listening to us, we are following this webinar, and they will understand that it's a must. Okay, it's a must to understand other cultures.
Yes, of course. So another question says, how can English language teachers assess their students' intercultural competence? And what tools... Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Tools that we can use.
Yeah, she said, how can English language teachers assess their students' intercultural competence, and what tools and resources are available to support this process?
I have exposed this in my discussion, but anyway, I'm going to repeat. The most interesting fact or tool that we can explored in our intercultural competence is to make research. We have to ask, the teacher should ask his or her students to make research concerning maybe specific culture, and they can, for instance, from newspapers, from videos, they can watch videos, and they come back. Then they come back with the results. Maybe they have some remarks, they have some question to ask to the teacher to complete their knowledge about this culture. So they come back, and with their classmates, they can debate, for instance, the most specific features that seem maybe a strange word. So they can ask questions, and they can be answered by the teacher or by their classmates to understand and to find these differences, and maybe from the differences we can make another new insights, new mind science, and to be open-minded. Okay.
Yes. So another question is saying, what are some best practices for incorporating intercultural competence into English language teaching?
To incorporate, this is, as we have said, for instance, when we bring ready syllabus, for instance, made not in our country but over abroad, we bring this syllabus and we apply them in our classrooms, for instance, and we feel that there is a lack of intercultural aspects, so the teacher can bring new themes, for instance, and to be discussed between the students, so that to enrich this cultural side by easy tools. We have said we don't need, for instance, to get special things to or special books, or because now we can do our research. Everything is allowed. We can. It depends in our motivation. If we are motivated, we can use even simple things. For us, it seems simple, but we can bring a new knowledge concerning cultures. Very easy. The debates. We have to allow the student to speak freely. This is freedom. Must have freedom to speak freely and express what they think about other cultures or their own culture. Okay.
Yes. By the way, a story just came to my mind. Once I was discussing these things with a fellow student parent, where he said that I cannot fully entrust a foreign course book. I would rather the local center creates its own material to ensure that my son or daughter is safe learning English.
Yeah, I think that you can do this. You can compete if you have a specific syllabus, I don't know, if you have a specific method, you can complete it, you can enrich it by, for instance, asking about other activities to attract the students' motivation, and in this way, I think that, and believe me, I have done this with my students when I ask them to make research concerning any topic, and presentation. I'm doing or presentations. Believe me that I'm learning with them. I'm learning many aspects. This is the most interesting thing when we are teachers. We are learning every day.
Yeah.
Not just our students who are learning, even the teacher.
Yeah, there is a philosophical saying that says, well, I consider it philosophical, but I don't know if it is. Anyway, it says, the amazing thing about teaching is when someone teaches to learn.
This is interaction. This is interaction. We give and we can receive.
Yeah.
And believe me, I've received more than I have given. Believe me, I'm very happy concerning this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, it was a great talk, but I'm afraid that we are running out of time, so let's tackle one last question. It says, what are some best practices for incorporating intercultural competence into English language teaching? Sorry, we tackled this already. So, what role do cultural differences play in language learning and communication? Since we were talking about teaching, let's tackle this about learning.
Question, Hadi. Yeah, when we are learning cultures, it means that we are promoting humankind. This is, I think, it's related to humankind. We become more realistic, we become more tolerance, especially tolerance. You see, we accept the other in a way, even if he or she is different, but she has her or his own culture. But we have to understand that this culture is part of this human being. The other's culture is important than ours. We have to respect the respect. The first thing is the respect. We have to respect the other. Okay, and when we respect the others, it means that the others are going to respect us, and this is what we are waiting for. And in this way, we are going to live in a peaceful, I think, in peaceful environment, and this is the main aim through learning cultures, intercultural competence, to incorporate it into syllabus, so that people will be I think, happy in a peaceful environment, to
Yeah.
avoid clashes, subtleties, and this is the most negative side in when we have many different cultures.
Thank you so much, Miss or Dr. Djamila AIT AISSA. It was a pleasure discussing this interesting topic with you today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for attending and being our special guest today. Please.
Okay. It's a pleasure to share with you my insights concerning intercultural competence, and I hope that the who are following us have got something useful concerning this this webinar. And that's all. And thank you very much for your invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please consider joining our Telegram channel. The link is shared in the chat box. And consider following Dr. Djamila on her LinkedIn. The link is in the chat box too. She shares insightful things about learning and teaching and translation. So, thank you so much
Happy.
again.
Okay then.
Yeah,
Bye. See you.
Sorry, what were you going to say? Sorry for the interruption. I cannot hear you, I'm sorry. The sound.
Questions, and I'm happy to share with you this insight. Hope that we will meet again. Okay.
Inshallah, thank you so much. Miss Aya saying it was an amazing chance meeting such a great mind. Thank you, Aya. Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Djamila. And
Okay, thank you, Hadi. Nice to meet you.
thank you.
Nice
You
to
too.
meet you, Hadi.
You too. So everybody, thank you so much for attending today's episode or today's webinar discussing the intercultural competence in English language teaching. Hopefully we meet next week at the same time with another speaker tackling another topic. Thank you so much and See you soon.